Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I did this video once, and again the audio is fucked up. Oh man, it annoys the shit out of me. On the first one I did, my wife watched it to make sure that the audio was okay. I'm like, alright, good. The audio is good. And she leaves, and the audio fucks up. Whatever. whatever. So today, so I'm going to do this one again. So today was voting day in Virginia. Polls were open for primaries. There's a race going on. Sanders chose Perriello to be his front man in Virginia. Now, I went to the polls today because as an African American, my feeling is too many people died and were beaten for me to have the right to vote. I don't consider that to be a minor thing. Like, in real terms, we have this situation where you have a subjugated people who were literally brought over in chains. And as those people were brought over in chains, those people at one point were freed, but they were still subjugated. And for the most part, didn't have rights or weren't regarded as actual people. It's an amazing thing to look at a person and say, you're not a person. But yet still, that was the society. Those people fought, struggled, bitched, moaned, complained, got in people's face, got in people's space, ended up in prison, were murdered to acquire that right to vote. That right, and it's not just conceptual. I mean, ultimately, you're talking about your ability to influence the elected leaders of your particular country. Who do you want to lead your country? What are the values of that particular person? Is that particular person going to espouse? What does your country stand for? That's not a small thing. That's not a small thing at all. And particularly if you're African Americans, there's always this thing in the back of your head of, we understand where we came from. We understand what could happen. Meaning the vote becomes that much more precious in order to almost protect oneself. Now, for African Americans themselves, they usually vote in a defensive way. They vote because they're scared of somebody else. Not necessarily for somebody else, meaning Democrats often just get those votes just by being a Democrat. Hillary Clinton got like 89% of the black vote. It's an amazing thing. But I don't think her sitting there with Mary J. Blige got her 89% of the black vote. Ultimately, it's, okay, keep the boogeyman out of office. Keep the boogeyman out of office. We understand the Southern strategy. We understand all that stuff that took place. We understand that ultimately, when the Civil Rights Act was passed, LBJ said, we've lost the South for a generation. And he was right. Because he full well understand that all those racist people in the Democratic Party were going to jump in the Republican Party and vote against them. Which is what took place. African Americans, to their particular credit, looked at this and says, okay, keep that boogeyman out of office. Now you could say we are far away from that right now, but so what? From our standpoint, from our perspective, there's a cultural memory that is associated with those events. When you have a candidate who's overtly racist, you can kind of see how that would bring up certain memories. So yeah, they're going to vote in a particular way. That's this pack mentality of keep that boogeyman out of office. Now, I say that to say that being able to choose who you want to run your country is a damn important thing, regardless of your race. But it even more so in the sense of, or I would say there's more weight on it at that point from the perspective of someone who was in a position of subjugation. That's all I would say. But either way you look at it, it's important. Who is going to run our country? What are the values they're going to espouse? Now, I went to the polls today. And because, like I said, I find this to be an immensely important thing. I picked up the ballot. I wrote neither Tom Perriello or whoever the other guy was for Democrat. And I put it in the machine. I put neither because neither one of those people represented my interests. Neither, as an X, I want neither represents my interests more than the other two candidates. I am not participating in your process, but yes, I am going to vote. And I've seen no contrition. I've seen no changes in the Democratic Party. I've seen no acknowledgement that they cheated Sanders. I've seen no acknowledgement that they've defrauded millions of people. I've seen no acknowledgement that they understand why 15 million people left their party. I've seen no acknowledgement of anything. You guys have screamed Russia at the top of your lungs and have used that to obfuscate any and everything, including inquiry into your party. You cheated my guy in the primaries. Do you really think I'm going to participate in another one of your primaries? Do you really believe it? I don't care if Sanders is out there trying to shill for that party. I don't care. I don't care at all. I've looked at Perriello's record. Perriello is not a progressive. In the same, or you can say he is a progressive in the same way that Obama is a progressive, and in the same way that Hillary Clinton is a progressive. He is an unimaginative milquetoast Democrat that has a record that's unimaginative. You're not getting my vote. You're not getting my vote. What this boils down to is, if you want things to change, you shouldn't reward people for bad behavior. And the Democrats have been exalting piss poor behavior going back beyond the primaries. What is the philosophical role and basis of the Democratic Party? What's the philosophical basis of the party? Now, to derive that particular answer, just think about the things that the Democrats say. What they say is the image that they themselves want to project, just like anybody else. Whatever you're talking about, an organization or anything else, all these things are just exaltations of self. It's like you're self-magnified. The things of an individual, sight, sound, smells, all these things, whatever these things that make up a person, whatever those qualities, those intangible qualities, those things are also expressed in groups, meaning a communications team is, for the most part, speech. Intelligence is, for the most part, getting information. Those things, how we articulate ourselves in this particular environment, are also articulated in the way that groups behave and interact with the world. When a group is espousing something, whatever they're espousing is the thing they want people to believe. That is their image. In the same way that the way you carry yourself is your image. It is your mask. If you're into astrology, it's your ascendant. It's the thing that somebody has to take a drink. There's a drinking game when I drop my ink pen. There's a drinking game. The things you want to espouse about yourself, the things you want to highlight, or the things you want people to believe about you, are the things that, for the most part, you try to exude. Who you are internally doesn't necessarily have to be the things that you project out to the world. Now, the things you project out to the world may give clues on what's going on inside, but ultimately what you project to the world is your mask that you're comfortable with. Have you ever seen somebody in an airport and they're like dolled up and shades on and they have a particular image? Well, that's the image they feel comfortable projecting. Groups are the same way. Groups have an image that they project. I would say that if you're trying to figure out what the Democratic Party philosophically is supposed to represent, you look at what they're saying and what they're trying to project. Income inequality, social justice, this idea of multiculturalism, this idea of income, not necessarily distribution, but this idea of fairness in the economy. These are the things that this group is supposed to philosophically represent, but it's also supposed to represent the interests of workers and the 99%. Now, if you had a president that gave 95% of the wealth to the top 1%, is that in any way representing workers? Is that in any way representing the poor and downtrodden? If you're expanding income inequality beyond what the Republican president expanded income inequality. I'm asking just basic questions. What I'm saying is that party doesn't represent the interests of the people it's supposed to represent. And because of that, one section of the community, mind you, it's a major section, 99%, is not being represented. This is a conversation between oligarchs. I see nothing in Tom Perriello's record that would make me think that he would be something different in that sense. What are the issues that are addressing or facing our society? And do I firmly believe that Tom Perriello is going to be able to deal with those issues in an honest, non-ideological way? Or at the very least, a way that doesn't necessarily... Let me put it this way. I looked at his voting record. When I looked at his voting record, the main thing I saw was, this is kind of bland. And I don't see the bills that I would think a progressive will put out. Because a progressive would be looking towards okay, how do we end poverty? How do we do things that will substantively affect the majority of the population for the better, even when it goes against the interests of the people who are giving us money? That's what I look for when I look for a progressive. Him painting himself in this way does nothing. Also, in his campaign ad, I'm going to put this link in the bottom. Tom Perriello has Obama essentially saying, this guy's going to go for Wall Street, and this guy's going to do this, and this guy's a real progressive. And you understand that's a contradiction, right? Obama painted himself a progressive. If Obama painted himself a progressive, and that progressive is now saying you are also a progressive, somewhat of a contradiction there. Progressives don't see Obama as being a progressive, meaning that if you're trying to get the progressive vote, that's not the way to do it. You should have had this video for moderates, not progressives. And if you're going to bring up Wall Street also, Obama protected the banks. He protected the banks. So the idea that he's even using the term Wall Street in any condemnatory way is hilarious. Tell me, Tom, how many people did the progressive president put in prison for crashing the economy? How many? And I wonder if Tom had any conversations with Obama on, hey, maybe we shouldn't be locking up whistleblowers in this way. Maybe we shouldn't be spending this much on the military. Maybe we shouldn't be murdering civilians by the thousands. Maybe we shouldn't be attacking the press. Maybe we should be more transparent. Maybe we should do something substantive about automation. Maybe we should try to have a green new energy deal. I wonder, did Tom Perriello have these conversations? Because I don't see these things coming up in bills in Congress. I don't see it. You cheated me. As I said earlier, I consider the vote to be massively important. Massively important. Because I see it to be massively important, I consider this idea of being able to choose our representative government is the most... because, look, what it boils down to is your ability to choose who you want to rule is the thing that keeps peace in a society. When it gets to the point where a society no longer has the ability to choose their elected leaders, well, you're going to have problems. In our particular society, the way they dealt with this issue is voting. If you're going to cheat the process, then you're completely decoupling this ability of the people to select their candidate. Meaning, no, I am not going to participate in this process when you've cheated my person. And not just cheated my person, has never come to any kind of realization or any honest appreciation of the fact that you actually did cheat. You will not be rewarded. At least not from me. I don't give a shit who's on the other side. And I understand that for the most part, this is a primary. So your choice is between Democrats. So again, I choose neither. They didn't have a Green Party candidate running. There was no Green Party election in this case. So I did the best thing possible. If they put a ham sandwich on the ballot, I would have chosen a ham sandwich. If that ham sandwich was running Democrat, then again, I would have chosen neither. I would have chosen neither. I suggest that if you want this country to change, you do the same. I mean, because think about it, and honestly think about it. All of the changes that took place in this country that were positive came from the left. They did. Even when you look at Abraham Lincoln was a progressive, particularly within context of his day. The man was trying to end slavery. Civil rights, again, progressive. Progressive. Each of these things, when you talk about gay rights, when you're talking about this idea of gay marriage, one thing after the next, these were progressive causes. When you're talking about decreasing income inequality, increasing the strength of unions, workers' wages, workers' rights, the left. It was from the left. Now, if you have two oligarchical parties in that office, and the left is for the most part not listened to, meaning there is no left in this particular country, who's going to move the country forward? And if you have terrorists that are awaiting this particular world in regards to ecological damage, in regards to the damage that results from massive concentrations of wealth, when you're talking about massive amounts of poverty and everything else, when you're talking about normal factors that are in the economic model itself that will drive poverty, driving poverty, you're talking about damaging and ruining lives. Economists looks at this and says, oh, good, that will keep these workers in line. Is that the society that you want? And do you honestly believe that voting one milquetoast Democrat that's just going to toe a basic democratic line He's for the most part just a moderate. Do you think that is moving you to the left? Or do you think that's substantively getting you anything better? What's your best bet? To get somebody in that office thinking that you can push that person after you get them in office and you voted for him. Mind you, you voted for him because you were scared of the other guy. You're always going to be scared of the other guy. There's always going to be a situation where you're terrified of the guy who's opposing you. So if that's always the case, you're always stuck with this guy, meaning this guy has free hand to do whatever he wants in that office. If you want to get anything substantively done, that man has to lose. And that man has to full well know that he can lose. Otherwise, you're just giving your vote away. And you're giving your vote away in a way that doesn't tangibly change this country or move this country forward. That's all I'm saying. This is like chess, the Breyer defense. Moving your knight out to c6, moving your knight to b8. It looks like you've lost time with moving your knight backwards. But you're repositioning him. Because you realize that that knight has nothing to do on c6. It's better options on d7. So yes, you lose some time in the sense that, yes, the Democrat is going to lose. But at a certain point, they would get it through their heads that nothing changes. And understand that Republicans are absolutely horrid and terrifying. And yes, this guy's just milquetoast instead of being terrifying. But you understand that there are things that you need to move this country forward. Like, the last thing you want is this continued milquetoast. You honestly believe that the position this country in right now is decent and a good position to be in. The way jobs are going. Do you honestly believe that's the way to be in? Half of the country is in poverty. And you're really going to put up a milquetoast Democrat? It's not getting my vote. There's a massive headwind on voting for Democrats with me. I would imagine that massive headwind is also for other progressives. I would advise progressives to not participate in this process. That's my advice. I vote neither. Let it burn. Let it burn. I want no part of this process. So I'll leave it at that. All right, guys, if you enjoy the show, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and you can always support the work through Patreon.